Okay, what about this? How could a 10-year-old boy be so out of control that cops need to shock him with a stun gun? 2 police officers were called to a daycare in Martinsville, Indiana, to handle this kid. They say the little boy was hitting and kicking his caretakers. He wouldn't obey. So one officer used a stun gun. Folks, this kid is some 94 pounds soaking wet. Was it necessary?
We want to get to the bottom of this. I will not tolerate unnecessary or unusual treatment of any suspect, regardless of age.
The police department put both officers on administrative duty, and they're investigating it all now. We're taking your calls, 877-TEL-HLN. And joining us now is former police detective Steve Cardian. He's a certified taser instructor. And, Steve, I got to ask you right off the bat, couldn't they do this without this kind of force?
Well, Ryan, it's very possible, but we have to look at a couple of things. Number one, when you hear 94-pound, 10-year-old tasered by 2 police officers, automatically it sounds horrible. But you can't, as a law enforcement official, slice anything so thin that there aren't 2 sides to every story. And I have had children, young children, emotionally disturbed, under the influence of drugs, that exhibited an extreme amount of rage and strength.
But, Steve, I got to jump in here. Aren't police officers trained to handle this kind of thing? Get them in certain locks, get them in a headlock, get near the kid, put him down, as opposed to having to tase him when he's only 94 pounds.
Yeah, no, and I understand. I hear you. I'm a use of force expert as well, 33 years in the martial arts. And I do understand one thing, that the possibility does exist that he was so out of control. And they didn't shoot him with the darts. They did what, it's a compliant pain factor where they did a dry stun, just as we're seeing up on the screen now. They dry stunned him, and that's a pain compliance. It doesn't send electronic 50,000 volts through his entire body.
Okay, so it doesn't have the same kind of pain threshold. What does it do to him long term? This is a 10-year-old boy. I'm worried that he might have some kind of personal, permanent damage going on here.
No long-term effects. Had they taken him down and the officers fell on top of him with all their weight, it's likely that he would have sustained some sort of broken bones. But with the implementation of the taser, it's a brief a moment of pain followed by likely compliance.
And, give you some background on this. Apparently, the cops were out there a little bit earlier, a couple of months earlier. They had some problems with this boy before. Hey, let me ask you, Steve, is this becoming a normal way to handle out-of-control teens? We've been flashing stats and different incidents that have happened recently involving teens. I got some right here, using a taser on a 10-year-old. The mother told the officer to do it. 43 children at a Take Your Sons and Daughters to Work Day. That was something that happened a little while ago. Is this something that's being employed often now?
Well, it's something that's being very sensationalized as a result of the use of the taser. And, I'd hate to see a couple or a handful of incidents taint what is a very, very effective law enforcement tool that saves many officers from injury and worse. Okay, Steve Cardian, thank you so much. I think about this kind of story, and I say to myself, all right, he's 94 pounds soaking wet, but you know what? Maybe kids are at that point where they're getting out of hand. Officers have to do something. But, Steve, as you said, I would think they would have different holds, different things they can do to keep these kids in line. You never know. It's situation to situation. Thanks, Steve. Right.